All right. President Obama is going to announce his plan to reduce the deficit today, and the Republican Party already voicing its concerns. Here now with more is Majority Leader Eric Cantor. Leader Cantor, man, oh man, we knew you. What were you? You were nothing really. Weren't you a whipper?
You were nothing.
Yeah, you were.
Okay.
No, but that is you have a big job now, and you do have broad shoulders. We love having you on, Eric. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Is it fair to say that that you guys didn't even know the president was planning to do this as recently as a week ago?
Well, you know, Joe, I think what you're looking at here, this is vintage Obama. You know, 2 months ago, he was in a posture where basically ignoring this huge fiscal challenge we've got before us and this debt burden that we're under, and calling for more investment, if you recall. And his position back then was freeze spending, no cuts. And basically ignoring a problem and let everyone else go and lead while he stands back. And then now he's coming in at the last minute. And what I'd like to hear today when I go to the White House is specifics. You know, I want to hear exactly what his plan is to lead this country. As you know, we've got the Ryan budget up on the floor this week in the House, which begins to lay out the way we feel we've got to take this country in order to stave off this debt crisis that potentially could bankrupt us.
What do you expect? I tried to figure out what we could expect to hear. I know we're going to hear the usual, and I said the demagoguing is bipartisan. That's one of the few bipartisan things. But we're going to hear tax cuts for millionaires is what is in the Ryan plan. And we're also going to hear that we need to preserve Medicare, not necessarily as it is, but the safety net that it provides. I think we're going to probably have that characterized as threatened by Ryan's plan. But he's going to have to come up with something else to try and get the runaway costs under control. And I don't know how he's going to do it. Certainly, he's not going to say that Obamacare does it, is he?
Well, listen. I think their contention still is that Obamacare is going to begin to save money as far as our health care is concerned. And I think all indications are after the passage of that bill that bill will escalate costs unlike we've ever seen. And that's why we continue to take a position we've got to repeal Obamacare and get back to a situation where we're focusing on costs and allowing people more access. But Joe, listen. The issue is here. The president has yet to embrace the Bowles-Simpson plan. He failed to put that in his budget when he had an opportunity, when he spoke to the country during the State of the Union. He has failed to do anything other than excoriate Republicans, saying that we want to just go ahead and give tax breaks to some and then cut programs that help the needy. Nothing could be further from the truth. What we're talking about is the reality, and that is these entitlement programs are going to go bankrupt. And the Congressional Budget Office predicts they'll do so within the next 10 years. We're trying to save these programs for the future. We also believe strongly that we need a safety net for those who need it, but not for those who don't. And that's why what we're talking about in terms of our Medicare and Medicaid reforms is to make sure that people have more of a choice when they enter the age of retirement. Now, we are also saying for today's seniors, as well as those nearing retirement, we're not touching your benefits because we know the political peril that is attached to that. The White House has already begun to crank up the rhetoric. We're saying to today's seniors, to those 55 and older, we're not going to touch those programs for them. But for the rest of us, we realize that these programs are not going to be around in their current state, and we've got to change the nature of those programs for the rest of us. That's what we're trying to say here. We put specifics on the table. It's time for the president to do the same.
Leader Cantor, I had a question about the debt limit vote, which everybody seems to be really terrified of. How do you think, at what point will you decide that the markets are freaking out and that it's time to not go down that road?
Well, Carl, what we're trying to do is look at the debt limit for what it is. The debt limit and the issuance of additional debt is in direct correspondence to fiscal mismanagement in the past. That's what that's about. And I think that the American people understand they're expected to pay their bills, and they expect their government to pay its bills.
Right. But do you think markets...
What they also expect, Carl, is they expect us to deliver on a promise that we're not going to let the spending get out of control again.
Right.
So we're looking
I'm
at
sure
this vote to be connected with those kinds of measures to take so we can hold ourselves to that promise.
I'm sure you're not anxious to see any kind of market dislocation, though, because of fear that this is going to be voted down.
No, there's no question, Carl. There's serious consequences to this vote, and that's why we say Republicans need assurances from this White House, Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, and others, that the spending is going to stop in this town. Yes, we believe that this country should pay its bills. No, we don't believe America should default on its debt.
I think Nancy Pelosi is behind you with a couple of garbage can lids doing something. Turn around. Do you see her back there slamming things together, or they don't want?
No, there's somebody beating the drums.
Is that a shovel-ready project right in the? Let me. Here's what has me really worried and just pessimistic, Eric. The president, put yourself in his shoes for a second and read Paul Krugman or read the Huffington Post. He is getting eviscerated for capitulating to you guys. He's not a liberal anymore. He's not a president that we want. He's not a Democrat. All he does is give in to you guys. So consider you're getting hit from your base like that. And then I listen to you or the Republicans. I don't feel good about the 2012 negotiations at all. Are we going to need another election to settle this stuff?
Well, listen, it's pretty interesting to see the turn of events on the part of the President of the White House. And I think it's telling to what they believe is going on with independence in this country. Remember, they were about no cuts and freezing spending 2 months ago. Now, all of a sudden, they've decided to re-enter the discussion and actually say and acknowledge the fact we've got a real fiscal train wreck and we got to do something about the debt. But what I hope is, Joe, that we don't hear a rehashing of the discussion that surrounded the tax rate increases on the last election. Remember, in December, the White House and the President came to us and said, okay, now's not the time to be raising taxes. And it's sort of ironic that we're having this discussion a couple days before tax day here. I don't think many Americans believe that anybody should have their taxes raised.
You know what frustrated a lot of people? I don't know if I'd call them socially liberal, fiscally conservative, and that was the Planned Parenthood getting bogged down on that. I'm not to say that issue will emerge again, but will the social issues that maybe some of the far right has, is that going to again come back? Are they going to flex their muscles in the 2012 debate? And do you guys have to appease them at this point if you're in the center?
Well, Joe, it is obviously we have some very heartfelt beliefs on issues of how you spend taxpayer dollars. That was an issue of prioritizing our spending and belief that we don't think government dollars should go to fund abortion. Harry Reid and the President had very different opinions on that. And as we saw, the outcome of those negotiations were that the Senate will now have an up or down vote on that issue. Again, I do think that there are a lot of differences, but we can find some ways to work together. What I was trying to point out is the President all of a sudden seems to have awakened to the fact that he has been absent in this discussion. And that's why I think today's meeting at the White House and how it may impact the discussion going forward will be very interesting. Again, I think that we need specifics from this President, as do the American people.
It's just, I think about all the things in the Ryan Plan, and an interesting piece in the Journal, which does set up some straw men, as Carl points out, about, but you are going to hear starving orphans, grandma in the snow, and you can imagine if you do try to take some of the tax breaks away from either the wealthy, loopholes, close those, or from corporations. We were having that conversation. A lot of corporations, we got the worst of both worlds. It pays for the multinationals to leave money outside the country, but they're still paying a lower rate. They're not going to like 25% because they're not paying that now. So
I'd like to see a breakdown of which companies are paying 25% and which companies are paying below that right now.
But you guys are taking on all the sacred cows, and it's every 2 years, which is frightening. That every 2 years you got to be in a position to win the independence, and here you go touching all these third rails.
Well, the essence of what we're talking about is that we don't believe that cutting is enough. You got to grow this economy. And as you know, we're working on tax reform. Dave Camp and the Ways and Means Committee are having hearings right now. We're attempting to broaden the base and lower the rates. That's good for everybody. And I think, Becky, your point about who's paying what rate is a good one. And at some point, we're all going to have to sort of get on board with what helps this economy grow.
Eric, the conversation makes a lot of sense to me, the idea of simplifying the tax code and getting rid of a lot of the loopholes. But when you start getting to the point of telling a bunch of companies that their tax bills are going to go up significantly, when you look at Americans and you say that, okay, you're no longer going to be able to take your home mortgage deduction, you can't take a child deduction anymore, you can't take a deduction for higher education. I mean, it seems like you're going to have people coming out at you with axes from every side of things, and the lobbyists going into complete overtime mode to try and preserve some of these sacred cows. I mean, every person I talk to agrees that the tax code needs to be simplified, but I haven't heard too many people saying, yes, it needs to be simplified and I need to pay more.
Right, and we're going to have to go about making the argument that we got to get special interest loopholes out of the tax code. There's no question about it. But remember, I believe that this election last November was about jobs. And if we're going to get jobs going again in this economy in the private sector, if we're going to be able to compete globally, we better do something about our corporate tax rate. Because right now, we are at a disadvantage when you have an American-based multinational that is taxed under our tax code. You know, our foreign competitors actually have lowered their rates, have made it more advantageous for American-based multinationals to leave their profits overseas and invest them there. That is a job killer, and we need to go about making those changes and doing so in a responsible manner while we're taking the incoming attacks from the White House and others accusing us of trying to favor, the business in this country. But remember, it's business that helps us grow. It's small businesses and large. It's entrepreneurs. We've got to create an environment where people are willing to put capital at risk and to create value and jobs. That's what has made America unique.
Eric, I saw an article that says that the Republicans have calculated that there has been a change, and people are going to be now willing to consider these types of things instead of the knee-jerk. You remember Bush and Social Security, or the knee-jerk reaction to any touching Medicare. You know what it is. You think you have the majority of Americans on your side that cutting is more important than preserving the safety net?
No, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. What I think, Joe, is the math doesn't lie.
Right, I know.
You can't get around the numbers here. These safety net programs, the way they're designed currently, will go bankrupt. The Congressional Budget Office says so. I think most Americans are beginning to realize that. We're trying to do something about it to save the safety net for those who need it, not for those who don't.
All right. Leader Cantor, thank you. You like that, don't you? You like hearing that? But
Eric is fine.
But you described the situation. I was going to ask you, why did you decide to do this in the first place? I mean, the very first step you took to, it's just so frustrating then. But appreciate your time today, Eric.
Thank all of you.
All right.